Right. Hello again, P3ers. Here we are in our YouTube classroom. And if you've watched before, you can probably tell I'm in a little different setup right now. Sitting on my living room couch. Some rearranging was done. And right for today, for this video anyway, I'm going to be delivering the goods from this couch. So hopefully it doesn't affect too much. Now, this video is particularly important in that we laid down Abraham Maslow and Erik Erikson's theories in class as a foundation for all of Unit 3 going forward, which is, I think, necessary. It all fits in well, and we'll continue putting those pieces of the puzzle together as we go. But even behind Erikson and Maslow, there's a concept that I mentioned to both classes called paradox. And I did not give enough time to this concept explicitly. Implicitly, I was weaving it through various discussions, but I never really came down hard on trying to dedicate some real time to paradox. And I think it's very important, this concept of paradox. So, pausing for a moment to grab a sip of coffee from my new hometown, Brooklyn, Connecticut mug. Celebrating my 6th year up here in Brooklyn, Connecticut. So that's nice. Now, this idea of paradox, I'm going to start off with the thoughts of actually an educational philosopher named Parker J. Palmer. Palmer believed, taught, I studied him and I think he's right, that there's paradox in the classroom, for example. And you're going, what does this mean? Stop using the word paradox. For Palmer, paradox means you have two opposite forces, truths we might call them, at work in the classroom. And the balancing of those two, sometimes opposite truths or forces, is necessary to really get somewhere, to really do well in the classroom. Now, an example of a Palmerian paradox would be this. Sometimes in class, we need to be disciplined and focused, and we're trying to wrestle with some difficult concept. Or there's an idea I want to make sure you're getting. So there's a time for discipline and focus. But also in the classroom, you want to be loose and relaxed and have some humor going on. Because let's be honest, we all think and function a little bit better when we're relaxed. That goes for physical activities. I'd rather see a player relaxed than too tense. They're not going to be able to perform as well in their sport if they're all clenched up. Same goes for mental activity. You're going to think easier and clearer and smoother and be more willing to share an idea if the atmosphere is relaxed. But there's still a time for discipline. So where's that balancing point? Where's that tripping point? And you know when I'm trying to be disciplined and people are leaning too far towards the relaxed end of things, and sometimes you got to snarl a little bit, get people back in line. And it doesn't happen that often, which is why I think sometimes it catches people by surprise when it does happen. But that's like the Palmerian paradox. How do I balance that? And I got to do it every single day. Every single day, you deal with that. Now, Palmer had 6 paradox in his vision of teaching. I'm not going to worry about all 6 of them. But that idea that you have two opposite ends of a pole, and those opposite ends will create a conflict, and it's your job to navigate them. That's the essence of paradox. All right. Matter of fact, I'm just going to read you something. A quote from a physicist, actually, Niels Bohr. Niels Bohr had 2 thoughts on paradox. One of them, the opposite of a fact is a falsehood. The opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth. So now you're trying to balance out 2 truths. Find that tension point and grow from there. Speaking of growing from there, here's another quote from Niels Bohr. How wonderful. We have met a paradox. Now we have a hope of getting somewhere. You don't get far with either or thinking. It must be this or that. In fact, it stagnates people. It creates enemies. And instead of navigating the tension and the conflict of the moment, we end up navigating the conflict of the tension of another person, demanding that they be wrong and they recognize that we are right. As opposed to going, all right, what might be a truth in here someplace? And you've seen it, paradox in our class thus far. I don't know if you remember the scene. I think you will, because it's a powerful scene from, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the movie. How do you like that? Hurricane, the movie Hurricane, Denzel Washington. When he's in solitary confinement and he's sitting there and he's confronted by two versions of himself. One of them, very angry, very upset with how he's been treated. Just as he says, he just wants to kill something, He's a furnace of rage. Then there's the other aspect of Denzel's psyche, which is terrified, crying, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what decision to make. It's looking to be perhaps saved, or at the very least looking for comfort. And so they have these two opposite ends of Denzel's psyche, Reuben the Hurricane Carter. And so what we see in that scene is two truths. Yeah, Reuben, you should be pissed off. Things have not been fair to you. You have not been treated well. Yeah, you should be pissed. And you should be heartbroken. Now, what do we do with those two different sides of our psyche? Reuben Hurricane Carter brought them together, if you will, and fought back, but not physically, not violently. He fought back in a number of ways. We haven't watched the whole movie. I don't want to go throwing spoilers every which way on you. But he combines those two aspects of his personality, of his psyche, and he moves forward. So that's a good example of a tension point with two truths. Reuben Hurricane Carter, once again, had a right to feel both of those feelings. So you do have that paradox playing out in Reuben Hurricane Carter. Now, one reason I'm stressing paradox today is this. You're going to bump into them all the time in your life. You will bump into them all the time, like Reuben did. Two opposite ends of your psyche. Both are right. What do I do with that? In a cinematic sense, we see it play out in a number of ways. And the reason it does come up, psychologist James Fowler points out, and I want to get Fowler's quote right here. Reality is too complicated for the confines of analytical logic. Sometimes either or must give way to both and. Sometimes either or must give way to both and. Maybe not a straightforward paradox, but definitely the idea that life gets complicated and logical thinking can't get you through it. We can go back to Empire Strikes Back. I don't know how many of you have seen Empire Strikes Back, but it's still Star Wars. I know Star Wars is still very popular, so I assume quite a few people know what I'm talking about here. And in Star Wars, you have Darth Vader, the Sith Lord, the engine of evil, and he's fighting Luke Skywalker. And in essence, he's given Luke a pretty good beating. Luke is crawling out onto a satellite tower over an abyss, and Vader is telling him, "Hey, join me." Luke says, "I'll never join you." Luke says to him, "No, you killed my father." And Vader's response is, "No, I am your father." Life just got complicated for Luke. He screams, no, jumps. But yeah, life just got complicated, which then leads to what do I do with this information? I wanted to kill this guy. Can I still kill him? He's my dad, but he's Darth Vader too. And so, will logical thinking alone get Luke to his final conclusion there? Probably not. You live in a culture that emphasizes logical thinking and doesn't always stretch you to embrace the struggle of that tension point of paradoxical thinking. So part of this unit is stumbling into paradox here and there when it fits into our class. Now, like I said, we started with Maslow. And I just want to give you a couple examples of Maslow's paradox, because we went through it so quick, you might have missed it. For example, in number 9 of his self-actualizing process, you develop a deeper concern for the community. I want to read to you that part of the notes. You have deep feelings of empathy and sympathy for human beings in general. It exists alongside the recognition in others of negative qualities that provoke anger, impatience, and disgust. So, you encounter someone, a person, you're developing a strong feeling of humanity and people matter in the self-actualize as you live your life. But there's still things that, to use Maslow's words, cause you anger, impatience, and disgust. Now, usually when we feel anger, impatience, and disgust, we go, you know how you do it. I don't have to explain to you how you act when you're feeling impatient or disgusted with someone. Now, Maslow is saying someone who's further along in the actualizing process feels these emotions, doesn't dismiss them, doesn't fake it till you make it, says, yeah, I'm feeling angry and disgusted. I'm pissed off. That person's doing this thing. But it doesn't then get in the way of the sense of humanity they feel at the same time. So I have a respect for your humanity, and you disgust me. What the hell do you do with that? They can't possibly get along. Unless we turn to Aang, the Avatar from the Nickelodeon series. Aang is a great example of reconciling paradox. There is no doubt Aang was angry and disgusted by the warfare. I forgot the guy's name. The Fire Lord Ozai. Fire Lord Ozai is bringing war and he's trying to conquer all of the kingdoms, and he's unrelenting in his fury that he's bringing. Aang is the one who can stop him, and it seems he has to kill him. So now Aang has this problem. You disgust me, but I have a strong sense of humanity, and because of my strong sense of humanity, I don't want to kill. What do I do with that? Now Aang works it out because he's the Avatar, is able to simply, not simply, it was a hell of a fight. If you watch, it's a heck of a fight. It wasn't simple. But at the end of the fight, Aang is able to depower the Fire Lord and pull all of his power out of him. So he found a way, even though he was disgusted and angry at times about the actions taken by the Fire Lord, he was also able to find a solution that allowed him to maintain his sense of his love for humanity. I'm not killing this guy. Even though it seems like, and a lot of people are telling me I need to, he found another way to utilize his powers and depowers the Fire Lord. So that would be an example from the Avatar of a character who was stuck with a paradox, knowing, not denying reality, knowing the reality of his emotions, knowing the reality of his ideals, and finding a way to work through them. It's a great example of navigating paradox in such a great series, really. That Avatar, The Last Airbender series, is so much in there. I could teach a whole course just on the Avatar, to be perfectly honest with you. All right, well, let's not worry about that right now. Now, this idea that I just shared with you, I'm going to kind of back it up now to one of the first of Maslow's thoughts from the notes. Back to number 1. An efficient perception of reality creates an accurate perception of what exists rather than a distortion of perception of what one needs. I want to talk to you about a character named Jessica Jones from the Marvel comic universe on Netflix. Because a lot of times people think about the idea of a perception of what I need, and they think about it like you're deluding yourself to build yourself up despite weaknesses. And that happens all the time. I would give you Willy Lowmen from Death of a Salesman. It's in your English curriculum, I believe. So Willy Lowmen's a good example of that. Walter White is a good example of that from Breaking Bad. Forever saying he's doing all these things for his family. He needs to be seen as a family man. When in the end, he's really doing it for himself, which he finally admits at the end of the series. But those people didn't have a clear perception of reality, and it was based on a need to look fantastic rather than what they were really all about. Jessica Jones is a different type of character. Jessica Jones is someone who performed a heroic duty, defeated a diabolically cruel villain. And in the later episodes, she's having a conversation with a friend, and the friend goes to call her a hero, and Jess cuts her off and goes, "Don't say the H word. Please don't say the H word. Don't call me a hero. I'm not a hero." Can't accept that. So her perception of reality is flawed in the other direction, meaning, don't call me a hero. Abraham Maslow would call that the Jonah complex, by the way, where people have trouble accepting the positive qualities that they have, deny them, don't accept reality, and therefore get stuck in a cycle of not being quite able to succeed because you just can't accept your strength, Jessica Jones. You do good work. You can be seen as a hero. You can be seen as a hero yourself, probably out there in some ways in your life too. So Jessica Jones is a good example of not only the idea of what it looks like when you don't have an efficient perception of reality, but also her need to be met is actually, don't think too well of me. Don't think so well of me. For God's sakes, don't call me a hero. So it's an interesting character, Jessica Jones from the Marvel comic universe. Now, Erickson, and we're going to be really quick with Erickson because you have that chart that I put on your Google Classroom, and the chart itself shows you the paradoxes down that first column. So I'm not going to worry about Erickson too much. You can look at those and see the paradoxes all at play in his work. Maslow, I felt I needed to take a dive into here. So hopefully this video helps with the perception of some of Maslow's thinking, but also helps with the perception of paradox, which is, once again, going to be a huge part of the backdrop, the background of what we're doing going forward, because it's a part of life. And learning to navigate those paradoxes, as Niels Bohr said, helps us get somewhere. All right, so that's enough for today. Have a great day, and I will see you in class. Take care, everybody.